Welcome to the Chelsea Fans Channel. I'm delighted to welcome Dan Levene into the studio. Dan, thank you so much for coming in. We have a lot to get through. Not the best of weekends for Chelsea Football Club, but a massive week ahead. We're going to start with Leicester. Road to Wembley. I'm excited.
I'm excited.
Are we going to take this trophy seriously? Is the most important thing, I suppose.
I think we have to, don't we? Because if you look at the possible outcomes, the possible options for Antonio Conte, this is a potential easy win. You know, we've seen it with other managers in the past come into a club. It's quite easy to go out there, win a few games, win the League Cup, and everyone's happy. It gives the team a bounce. So I think this will be seen as a priority. But
terrible fixture for us, isn't it? A bad draw.
It is a very bad draw. Being the champions away from home, who wants that,
exactly,
really?
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see how much Leicester treat this seriously, of course, because they've got far bigger fish to fry, haven't they?
Yeah.
They've got Champions League football, and I've heard from contacts up there. There's this possibility they might be putting in a few reserve names, a few lower order players.
Good news.
So that is all to the good for Chelsea.
Presumably, though, we're going to have to do the same thing. We're going to have to adopt that sort of policy as well.
Yes, I would have thought so, and maybe for different reasons. There's a certain necessity in keeping players happy. There are plenty of players in the squad that haven't had a game yet, yes. Or haven't had much of a run. You think, Asmir Begovic, for example,
yes,
a man who always wants a bit of football, but he's not getting any at the moment. So you could imagine he might be in the team.
Yeah, he'll be pushing for a starting place in the first team, like for Premier League games soon as well, I think.
Well, it's not a bad shout, actually,
Now, the reason I make that crass joke about Courtois was because the performance the other night just wasn't good enough, was it? From the back line right through, it just really was a poor performance against Liverpool, and they got exactly what they deserved.
Yeah, it's difficult to pick individuals out of it because there were a lot of individuals who had very bad games, and as a result, of course, as a team, we had a very bad game. Defensively, I thought we were shambolic for a lot of the game, I'm afraid.
There was that terrible image, when their first goal went in. I was on my way home, and I was on the District Line checking Twitter. There was like a screen grab, and it's just appalling. Can you imagine when Coutinho got that ball? Right, Coutinho's got the ball from the free kick. He's put it down, and he must have looked up, and I can just imagine he couldn't believe what he saw. He just saw four of his mates over there, not a Chelsea player near them, and he just thinks, if I beat the first man here, we score a goal. This is exactly what happened.
An absolute gift.
It's ridiculous.
And for Antonio Conte, a man who, of course, prides himself on Italian defensive efficiency, he was right in front of me. He was going absolutely crazy at that. There were several points in the game where I saw him shouting and shouting and shouting at his defenders. One of the key things he seemed to want was to have Aspi closer to Luiz. He wanted a far narrower back four. Because he just thought that was the best way to block. But they clearly haven't quite got his methods. They haven't quite got his system yet.
Do you think it's a lack of Terry that made that so apparent?
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting point because we asked him, the press afterwards, Conte, about what he missed not having Terry there. And he was very clear and very honest. It's a question a lot of people might have ducked. But he said, well, yeah, him not being here is a problem for us at defensive set pieces. We don't have the organisation when John Terry is not in the squad at the back. And remember, this is a player that probably will be walking out the door in a year's time, less than a year's time. And nobody seems to be able to fill that gap at the moment. And that is a bit of a problem for Chelsea.
Yeah, it's really worrying, isn't it? So we're obviously still without Terry for this game against Leicester, but we have to win it. I love going to Wembley in February, March, just such a great thing, isn't it? Win a trophy early. It can set you on the road to good things to come.
Yep.
And let's knock Leicester out. I think that we can do it. The team selection, though, is going to be very important, and we're still without Terry. So Dan and I have put our heads together, and we've come up with this team to start the game. Please do us a favour, comment below, let us know what you think. The team's up now. So Dan, I suppose the most interesting place to start here when we look at this team is a debut for Alonso.
Yeah, he's got to start playing at some point, and this seems to be the ideal place to stick him in there, really. It's sort of a lower risk game, potentially up against maybe some reserve team players from Leicester, and it gives him a bit of a feeler into the league and into sort of English football. I think he's probably one of the first names on the team sheet.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. The other one that's very interesting is John Obi Mikel. Matic has come in for a lot of stick this season. People really aren't happy with him. They think that he started this season as poorly as he finished the last one. And people have been calling for John Obi Mikel. Do you feel like if this goes well for him tomorrow night, do you feel like he could be in for a shout starting the game at Arsenal?
Absolutely, why not? And you'd have thought going to Arsenal, who, when we're still trying to get things working properly, Mikel's a good, safe player to have, isn't he? He's always a safe pair of hands. If you need to slow down a game, if you need to dictate the way things are played, then he's your man. And he needs to play some football at some point, so why not stick him in against Leicester?
Very true. And then he'll be partnered in the midfield with Ruben Loftus-Cheek and Cesc Fabregas. Do you feel like that trio will work as a unit?
Well, it's an interesting three, isn't it? You can see there's creativity in there, you can see there's defensiveness in there. The big question mark really is Loftus-Cheek, who we've not seen a lot of this season at all. And there are still questions over what his natural position is.
And then leading the line, we've gone for Batshuayi. Do you feel like he's up to that? Do you think he can do the Diego Costa and play up front on his own?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there were a lot of people quite frustrated in the Liverpool game that he didn't get the opportunity to do that, because we looked like we needed his creativity, we needed his enthusiasm, his pace, and those are the things he brings to the game. He plays, it's an old cliche, he plays with a smile on his face, and sometimes that's what we need.
Yeah, exactly. And just the fact that he's so direct and so up for it and so keen, it can really influence others, can't it? So it's a shame. Do you know what? You've touched on something there, Dan, that I really did want to speak to you about, and I know a lot of people are very interested in this. Why are we making subs in the 86th minute?
Yeah, that's a big question. Certainly on Friday night against Liverpool, that was the question I found that most fans, where I was sat in the East Low, were asking. People wanted to see changes at half-time because it wasn't working. People wanted to see them throughout the second half because it still wasn't working. We asked Antonio Conte about this after the game, and again, he was quite refreshingly honest. He said he thought he had his system that was growing through the game. He thought Chelsea were better in the second half than they were in the first, which
it's true, but it's not the point. They've taken they've scored for 2 goals. They don't need to press.
I think Conte has very much a theory and a belief and a philosophy of how he likes to see football played, and he's still trying to work on that with a tight group of players. That's why we're seeing very, very late substitutions. Having said that, at Juventus, the same was the case. He doesn't like to go with early substitutions. He likes to use his 11 for as long as he can.
It feels like such a shame. I just can't see what more Cesc Fabregas can do to get on the pitch sooner. Every game that he's come on this season, I feel like he has made a positive contribution.
Yeah, he has. But then every time he's come on, it's been a change in tactics and a change in game. Chelsea have gone from being this sort of passing, moving, almost machine-like organisation to being very, very direct, just being, Fabregas's best point at the moment is that he can pick out that pass, the vital pass. But that doesn't seem to be the way that Conte wants his team to play.
It just seems like such a shame, because also Chelsea Football Club at the moment, sadly, aren't a good enough team to have a player of Cesc Fabregas's brilliance on the bench. It just seems ridiculous when we're watching what's going on. When we're watching Oscar, who I think Oscar has had a very good start to the season. I think he was poor against Liverpool, but I think overall his work rate has been very good. But when you see an Oscar struggling and Matic struggling, and you look at the bench and you see Cesc Fabregas there, you think, what is going on?
It is frustrating, yeah. And he's obviously he's a very professional sort of guy, I think, Cesc, and he's worn a brave face through the thing. But you'd have thought he himself must be more frustrated than anybody else, seeing what's going on and seeing.
His approach has been great, though, hasn't it?
Absolutely.
He's been so professional about it. Other players, when they've been dropped or rested or whatever, they kick off, they try and move. He has kept his head down. I think he replied to somebody on Snapchat saying that he's going nowhere. I'm thrilled with his work ethic. I'd just like to see him on the pitch a bit more. So that pretty much concludes our Leicester preview. I'm buzzing, I'm going. Sophie will be there afterwards, so make sure that you come see us and give your opinions on the game afterwards. But Dan is in the building today, so I have to just have a brief word with him. We have a massive fixture on Saturday, Dan. How are you feeling about Arsenal away?
Enormous. And do you know the last time we lost at Arsenal away?
Hang on. I love this kind of thing. I can remember losing there 3-1. Ivanovic scored R1.
27th of December 2010, so almost 6 years ago. I remember it well.
Wasn't Gallas? Was that the last one?
I'm not sure if Gallas was there.
Just trying to think of where we... No, Gallas scored in a 1-0 win. I love these sorts of games. Was it 3-1?
It was 3-1, yeah.
Yeah, Ivanovic, yeah.
It was Ivanovic. Yeah. But almost 6 years ago, and I remember it well because it absolutely tipped down. The trains weren't working, and I had to cycle home in the rain, and it was one of the most miserable evenings I can recall.
It's horrible losing that.
That cannot be allowed to happen again.
No,
frankly.
Yeah, exactly. Trains have to run. We have to get a result. It all has to go well. Do you think that we can do it?
Yes, I think we certainly can do it. Whether we will or not, of course, is the other question. But Arsenal clearly have a mental block when it comes to Chelsea.
Yeah, because even in their pomp last year, when we were at our lowest ebb, we still took 6 points off them.
And Arsene Wenger clearly sees something. Something comes down in his mind when those blue shirts go on the pitch, and it's a magnificent thing.
It's true. Do you think it's the Mourinho thing, though, or do you think that is a Chelsea thing? Because it was a Mourinho-Wenger issue, wasn't it, a lot of the time?
Well, I'll tell you what, we're about to find out.
Can't wait. Right, what a week we have in store. I cannot wait to get started. We're away at the Champions in the Cup, and then we're away at one of our biggest rivals. This is going to be fantastic. This is why we're in football, isn't it? Dan, this is such a big week. Will you do us a favour? Will you come in next week and just, do a bit of a post-mortem with us and go through what's happening?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Wonderful. Guys, do us a favour, comment below, let us know how you're feeling about this week, and come on you Blues.
Welcome to the Chelsea Fans Channel. I'm here with James outside Stamford Bridge. So we just lost against Liverpool 2-1. First defeat of the season, at home, poor. What were your thoughts?